One more class, one more day, one more mentorship. Today we'll talk about cold weather operations. And just to make things clear here, I am not going to teach you how to operate on cold weather conditions, especially because to do that, in order to do that, I would have to know the airplane you're flying. This is normally something the companies provide, and because it has particularities, right? So every airplane is different. It has a different performance or weight. The procedures of the company can be different. The airports you operate will also need to be adjusted for that. So my goal here is to introduce this topic. I'm gonna be very simplistic in some terms. And what I intend to do today is talk about the purpose of operating, of knowing about cold weather operations, the purpose and why we have this in aviation, and also how to prepare an airplane, what you need to do during the flight, what are the consequences of ice buildup, and we are also going to see some vocabulary, okay? We'll also talk about the difference between de-icing and anti-icing, which is a debate. Some people don't agree, but I'm just going to put one perspective here. And we're going to talk about holdover time as well. Okay, this is extremely important because there are some expressions here, there are some things we use regarding cold weather that if you don't know about this, it's impossible to understand. So for example, what is holdover time? You need to watch the class to know, but some things are very peculiar, some things are very particular. Sorry about this area. So my goal is to introduce this topic, help you guys have another point of contact. So this class is being recorded live. There are around 20 people, I think, with me here, something like that. And of course, right after that, I'm going to close the recording, talk to them, and possibly this recording will go to our platform in the lounge with the support material. So everything I'm showing here will go to the platform in the video format. The audio extract will go to Spotify, so you guys can listen to everything, okay? So bear with me if I make a mistake. This is just gonna be very simple. I like doing this because I can be informal. I don't really feel that here I'm teaching or I hold the keys to the truth and all the procedures. I'm just talking to you guys from pilot to pilot. I want you guys to share your experience if you want, and just help you practice, just improve your airmanship in the way I can. All right, so let's go, guys. So first thing, let's understand one thing: cold weather operations. We know that airplanes have limitations, and airplanes have all sorts of limitations, starting with our weight, flight level, speed, altitude, whatever. And of course, we also have for weather. Especially if you're flying in North America, I would say, or all the way on the south, and Europe, of course, you will have to perform some procedures, especially by the end of the year, right, when it's winter in the North Hemisphere. And everything changes. Everything changes because the weather will change the air density, which will change our temperature, the temperature will change the air density, which will change our fluids, which can freeze some areas of our aircraft. And of course, even when it's a bit warm in the surface, it's going to be colder when we fly at flight level 300 or above. So we have some systems in the aircraft to prevent ice accumulation, ice accretion. And we also have some procedures we perform in order to prevent ice from attaching to our surfaces. I was 1 year ago, not a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I was in Chicago, and it was a very late, it was a red-eye flight. I think it was around midnight, something like that. We were about to push back. Everything was delayed because this is 2022 I'm talking about. We had we had one of the biggest snowstorms we've had in the, I don't know, past 100 years. So everywhere was closed. It was like insane. Like we had chaos everywhere. If you don't remember, research the snowstorm of 2022 right before Christmas, and everything was delayed. I remember we stayed in Houston, and after that we could manage to go to Chicago the next day, and the airplane just stopped. We were about to push back. Everything was okay. We had to stop. Everybody stopped because the water in the toilet froze because it was just too cold and the aircraft was stopped. So sometimes when we talk about an airliner, when we talk about a bigger aircraft, or even the executive airplanes, we don't just have fuel and wings. And that's what people consider when they think about ice. They care about the windshield and they care about the leading edge of the wings, right? The leading edge is this part. The leading edge of the wings and the windshield. That's the focus of most people. But every fluid can freeze if we don't have the de-icing fluid in that, right? So we had to stop, had to drain all the water and everything. So it was a big mess. Like everything everywhere was delayed already. Every flight was delayed, and it happened just because the aircraft was in the apron. Of course, a mistake happened in the procedure because this should not occur, not before pushback. So when I talk about cold weather operations, it's something that will affect everything. Not only the airplane, it affects the runway, it affects our performance, it affects ourselves as people. We have weather limitations as well. So today we're going to touch on these points a bit. Okay, so let's start. Let's talk about the purpose of the cold weather operations. First thing here, I'm going to read a little extract I created for you. So first thing we need to understand is that cold weather operations require careful planning, preparation, and adherence to specific procedures to ensure the safety and effectiveness of flights in low temperature environments. What do I mean? We need to plan and prepare every flight. However, when we have cold weather, when we are going to face icing conditions, we need to be even more careful because there are different procedures, right? Because when the temperature is low, we are not built for that. We're not built, airplanes are not built to fly on extreme weather. We have systems and we have equipment and we also have fluids that will help, but we need to understand that things are not going to be the same from the ground operations until our approach again. So today, as I said, we'll understand the aspects when operating in extreme weather conditions, and we'll also see the tools and knowledge needed in order to ensure the safe operations and regulatory compliance. Let's forget the topic a little bit. Let's focus on the vocabulary, right? We have effectiveness of flights, ensure the safety, careful planning and preparation. We can also talk about safe operations and regulatory compliance. Everything's vocabulary. And the best way for you to know vocabulary is being exposed to every single type of content. You're not going to pass the ICAO test because you only study the ICAO test. That's not how it works. You're gonna get a good score, a good band in your ICAO test if you know about aviation, and if you know a lot about aviation, and if you know that in English. That's why every class matters, every content matters, everything you read matters. So that's how we increase the overall airmanship, right? We gain a good skill set, and we're gonna use this one point in our lives. I'm sure that everybody that's here will have the opportunity to perform international flights, and even though it's not a reality in Brazil, in a way it is. If you go to the south of Brazil, it is, and most of people who listen to me are Brazilians. You'll have to fly here. You'll have to fly to North America. You'll have to perform some different types of operations. Sometimes one thing you listen, one thing you hear is going to help you a lot, not only in the ICAO test, but English is not for the test. You guys are not studying English because you want to pass the ICAO test. You are studying English because you need that for your career. And even though your boss asked you to get the ICAO test, he asked because he wants to perform international flight, he or she, right? Your bosses are asking for the ICAO test, the ICAO level, because they want to perform international flights. And I'm pretty sure they want a proficient pilot. They want someone who knows what they are doing. So let's open up the mind a little bit here. As I said, this topic per se is not going to be in the test. They're not going to ask you something this specific, but the vocabulary will help you a lot. So now we know what we need to do when preparing for cold weather Of course, we need to have careful planning and preparation, but we also have some specific procedures. We're going to talk about that a little bit. All right. And what I've studied, what I've learned throughout my career is that winter operations can be divided into three parts. All right. Always. First one, we need to detect and remove the contamination from the aircraft. That's a given. All right. So first thing, we are going to perform the walk around procedure. We are going to, if we see the contamination, which would be ice or snow, we need to remove it. Sometimes you need to apply an anti-icing fluid, a de-icing fluid, or you just go with your hands. You know, I remember that there were flights that we would only like put our hands in the airplane, just change it, you know, just take all the snow off. The snow would be like fluffy, so it would be fine. We would just pass our hands to the leading edges just to remove any ice formation, remove water as well. And that's the first step. We detect and we remove the ice from the aircraft. After that, after removing, we cannot, for example, I cannot clean the airplane and wash it with water. That would be absolutely stupid because it's gonna freeze again. We are talking about winter here. After removing the ice and snow, we are gonna maintain the aircraft free of contamination and configured for the flight phase. Ice in the aircraft can lead to jammed flight controls, for example. So we need to clean it up, we need to wash it, we need to remove all the contamination before the flight and maintain the aircraft clean. We're going to talk about this specific procedure soon enough, okay? And then last step, we need to verify if we have sufficient thrust, braking, and lateral control of the airplane for the weather. Why am I telling you this? Because when it's too cold, we lose a little bit of performance because of air density, temperature, and even the fuel explosion there. We need more braking because the runway will be more slippery. Will not have the flexibility of the pavement anymore, and we need lateral control, right? So we need three things. First, clean the aircraft. After that, make sure it's going to remain clean, at least to a certain extent. And then we need to see if we have enough power, breakage, and lateral control. That's how we divide cold weather operation procedure. All right, let's go step by step here. So here we have different things we need to do in different stages. First thing we go for before the flight, of course. We're not going to deal with this during the flight as much as we need before the flight, which means that first thing we need to know if the flight is doable. That's where we make decisions, right? I'm going to give you guys a sentence. My flight instructor, Peter Sturgeon, he used it to tell me this all the time. Today he's flying for Delta. And first thing we need to do is we need to make sure there are no doubts, which means that we need to read the forecast. There's something called snow temps. I don't know if everybody has heard about it. Guys, raise your hand or something. Send me something in the chat if you have heard about a snow temp. Most pilots haven't. We have a snow temp, which is of course a report about snow in specific airports or specific runways. All right, so we have the snow temps and we have the weather reports. First things first, we need to understand the forecast. We need to see if the weather is going to respect not the weather is going to respect, but if our aircraft fits the current weather conditions, because we have limitations. After we have that mapped out, after we know the forecast and how bad it is, how cold it is, and showers and whatever, we have to plan. And what are we gonna do? First thing, we're gonna choose a good alternate. We need an airport. Not even talking about the destination here, about an alternate. The alternate airport needs to be in a better area, so we can land. Especially because some airports close due to weather, due to snow accumulation, and every airplane is gonna have to divert. And if every aircraft diverts, means that they are probably going to the same airport. So for example, it happened, as I said, last year. Oh God, I don't know what happened. Midway was closed. Everybody diverted to O'Hare, and now O'Hare doesn't have any slots. So we need to find good alternate airports, not only one airport. We need to have different alternates because we know that If something bad happens, we need to alternate and we must reach that airport. So we must have 2 or 3 plans there. And of course, if we know the weather, we will have to maintain or decide an appropriate flight level or route. We need to be very careful with the planning because the situation requires that extra level of attention. Okay. All right, so we checked the forecast, we planned our flight, everything's fine. Now we need to deal with the equipment. First, we need to have the anti-ice and de-ice. We need to see the differences and how to apply the procedures, if our systems are working, if we can have that, of course, and check the fluids. As I told you guys, the water inside the toilets can freeze. If you don't have water, you will have another kind of fluid there. You'll have your oil, you'll have your fuel. So sometimes it's a specific fuel or there's an additive you put in your fuel that will help it from not freezing. Okay, of course, nobody wants a frozen fuel. After we have that settled, we will have to calculate our new performance and takeoff and landing distances. When we talk about cold weather operations, we need to consider that the runway will be wet or have ice, and the runway will be wet or contaminated. I'm sure all of you know the difference. A wet runway is when 25%, I think it's 25% of the runway surface has less than 3 millimeters of thickness. And a contaminated runway is when the runway has ice, regardless of how much, or more than 3 millimeters of contamination, right? So this could be snow, ice, slush, water, all right? When it has ice, it's already contaminated. If it has snow, water, or slush, that's gonna be wet depending on the thickness, okay? So we need to understand the runways for all our alternates, takeoff and landing and destination airport, and of course calculate our takeoff balance. After that, we need to perform the weight and balance, which is basically account for fuel density changes and stability checks, right? So as I said, it's going to be colder, so all our fluids will be more dense, which means that they will be heavier because we can fit more. And when it expands, we are going to have a problem in the tanks, so we need to consider everything. Of course, it's very complex. That's why I told you guys in the beginning, I'm going to emphasize this one more time. I'm not going to teach you how to do this because it changes from aircraft to aircraft. So of course, I don't know how to do it in every airplane. Companies normally have a specific procedure, a specific training for pilots about this. So if you want, you can study a little bit more. I know that Ryanair is very good at this. Ryanair always publishes good documents about it, and of course you can find it at Boeing, Airbus. Every manufacturer will also have their own chapter of cold weather operations. Okay, I'm just going very, very, very generically through all stages. So how do we prepare a flight when we know we are going to face extreme weather conditions? First, we read all the forecasts. After that, we plan the flight with the alternate airports and the appropriate flight level and route. We need to check our anti-ice and de-ice equipment and fluids. We also calculate our new performance data and takeoff and landing distances. We also need to account for fuel density changes and our stability checks. Basically, it's a normal flight, right? This is what we already do. We need the extra care when we know it's going to be extremely cold. Roger? Preparing the aircraft. How do we prepare the aircraft after that? So we know what to do. As I told you guys, we need to clean it up, maintain it clean, and of course check if our systems, brakes, and thrust is operating fine. So how do we prepare the aircraft? First, we have the de-ice and anti-ice. We need to remove the ice that was formed in the aircraft. And when I say ice, I'm talking about snow, slush, and water, everything. We need to clean up the surface and we need to keep it clean, not only remove. Because if I remove the ice, I spray some water on top of the wing, 2 minutes later it's going to all be frozen again. After that, we need to comply with all the cold weather procedures. This is an area I was very careful not to touch in this class because it will be different. And I do not want you to take me as a professor, as a teacher here, or as an instructor. You need to follow your company's guidelines. if you are flying into a region that has cold weather, or if you have to perform a cold weather operation, check your manual, check the aircraft, check your company's SOP. I'm sure they have it, okay? After we check all the procedures, we adapt to the procedures, which will basically be more takeoff and landing distance. We'll also have some different engine ratios. V1 will also need to be increased in 15%, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll just have overall different speeds and altitudes. Of course, fuel management will be very important because fuel will reduce the temperature inside the engine. So we need to have that very, very, very fine line there. We also need to preheat the engine because the engine needs to have enough heat to start, especially in the beginning of the flight, since we'll need all its power and it's going to be cold. Imagine you in the morning, you wake up and you are extremely cold and you just put on some shoes and start running. You're going to have a problem. It's the same for the engines. The engine needs to be preheated. It needs to be running. Everything needs to be okay inside the engine. So when you require that extra push, it happens. Because when we talk about cold weather operations, we are talking about very cold air. That's obvious, right? And we will have very cold air entering on our intake, being injected by the engine. What's going to happen? It's going to change all the density inside. We might have a problem with the spark plug, especially when we talk about propeller airplanes, because when it compresses, it already heats up a little bit. We need to make sure it's going to be enough, all right? And after doing all this, we inspect the surfaces again. Nothing worse than ice buildup in an aircraft. Roger? Guys, send me an okay, Roger, or something like that if you're following. I'm not going too fast, am I? I don't think I am.
Okay, guys.
Can you guys follow? Is everything okay? Nice, beautiful. You guys are following, it's fine, great. Yeah, you guys are high level, so let's go. Oh, God, always there, always there. Level 5, huh? Let's go. During the flight, so we have everything we need to do before the flight. We have everything. Let me just disable one thing here. Disable. A second. Wait. I need to disable something. Disable here. There you go. I just did. Sorry, guys. Let me just clean up all the drawings. Nice. It wasn't me, but someone just put them out here. All right. So we have the before the flight procedure. We prep the aircraft, and we have some stuff to do during the flight as well. Basically, our awareness has to be increased by 40% at least. Okay, because we have all the aspects of the flight, and this is something that's interesting. When we are flying into cold weather, all the other risks are there. Everything else is still there. It's still a normal flight, but we have something that needs an extra attention. So everything's there. All the procedures are the same. Everything you need to do remains the same. It's not going to be easier. It's going to be that plus more. Okay, so basically, when we are flying and we are already in those cold weather limitations, we need to first monitor the weather changes. Of course, we keep an eye on that. That's why I put the arrow here in the radon. Then we need to worry about the cabin heat. Why am I telling you this? This is something I'm very passionate about because I suffered this a lot. We focus so much on the airplane, right? We focus on the surfaces, we focus on the engines, the fluids, and the calculations, and everything's perfect. And then you forget to bring a coat, and you're flying a Seneca, you're flying a Baron. You're not gonna be ready. The airplane might be ready, not you. And then you are flying, and it's extremely cold, and your hands are like freezing. You cannot close your hands anymore, and you can't breathe, and your mouth is shaking. You can't talk. Send me something here if you have ever experienced like really, really, really cold weather. I don't know, not in Brazil. I don't think in Brazil that's a reality. But if you have been to the US, to Europe, and you have faced very, very cold weather, has anybody here been in that situation where it's like -5, -10? Anybody? Send me a me or something. or no? Let me see the chat here. No.
During the night,
During the night?
Yeah.
-10?
No. just zero.
Yeah. I mean, 0 is already bad, but like the thing that I'm saying here, 0 is bad. I mean, you can have hypothermia at 0 degrees, of course, but when we deal with -5, -10, I've already been in -23 in Michigan, which is absolutely crazy. Of course, I didn't leave the house. I just took a picture of the thermometer. I would never leave the house. But this is something that happens when it's freezing outside. You don't have a lot of time. It's like you don't have your coat, you walk, and then you're freezing already. And the problem is that you're not cold. For me, when it's 0 degrees, you are cold. That's it. You're feeling cold because you normally have a jacket on or pants. That's cold. That's fine. That's easy, right? The problem is that when it's freezing, when it's -10, -15, you can die. So you're not gonna feel cold. You cannot move. Your hands are gonna be stiff, which means that they're just gonna stay like this. They won't close. You can't talk. You can't breathe, and all your body energy is going into keeping you alive. It all goes to the heart. So your arms are gonna be cold, your mouth, your lips, you can't see, you have a headache. So it's horrible. I've not been in these severe situations, but I started like feeling that I couldn't really control anything. So this is something pilots must consider. You prep the airplane, you also have to prep yourself. So if you're not flying an A320 or a 737 or a Gulfstream, you need to be aware of that because you need a good coat. We know that some aircraft like a Cessna 152, for example, the cabin heat's not so good. And if you have to perform a flight and it's very cold, you need to have a good jacket. And the thing is that you need to have a very good jacket, but it cannot be something that will impair your movement. So it needs to be good clothes. So you need good clothes, something in your hand. The cabin has to be comfortable because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the airplane's flying, is fine, the engines are perfect, everything's okay, but you can't control or talk. And it happens. I'm sure even if you have never faced this situation, you've seen a movie of people freezing. That's what happens. And we are not superheroes, especially when we are flying. We need all our awareness, which means that we need our reflexes. We need our brain to be working fine. We need our body to be responding. Because sometimes, oh God, it's so cold. I'm so uncomfortable. And then you have to go around. You have to reject the takeoff. You have to perform any kind of evasive maneuver due to another aircraft in the region. You need to be sharp. So we talk about preparing the airplane, but I wanted to put this out there. You need to prepare yourself as well. It is tough. It is tough, guys. So first thing, we need to monitor the weather changes. We need to worry about the cabin, which means us. The cabin needs to be in a decent temperature. You need to be well clothed. Grab some coffee, come on, whatever you can there. Of course, after dealing with you, snow or ice removal, right? We need the de-ice and anti-ice as well. We need to have the engine management. We need to see if our power and performance is okay. We're not losing the power due to ice accumulation. And of course, surface awareness. The biggest problem we have is when it's very cold and very humid. This will not happen when you're flying at, flight level 350 or above. But if you're flying at flight level 200, 180, 150, and if it's humid, you have a problem because it's wet, it's cold, and you are sucking in air inside the engine. So imagine this scenario. It's wet, it's cold, and you want air inside the engine for it to explode. It's not going to happen. You're going to start losing performance. Your blades or your propeller, imagine, your propeller is going to start losing efficiency. So everything counts during the flight. It's not only after the flight. Remember what I told you guys here. We remove the ice. We need to keep it clean, and we need to worry about our performance, all right? Not only the aircraft's performance, but our individual performances as well, all right? That's what we do. What about landing? Well, landing, you're on the ground. Suit yourself, So we prepare the aircraft before. We prepare the flight. We plan everything, see if it's doable. After that, we prepare the aircraft. Then we have to monitor everything during the flight, approach, land. I'm not going to talk about the landing. It's per se, because the landing is something that it's basically going to be landing in a contaminated runway. So we know that we need extra runway. We need to perform our calculations. We need to have all our systems operating. We could overshoot the runway because we are not going to have efficient braking. So this is something that is a given. I already have a class about runway overrun and excursion. Very important for you to watch if you haven't, okay? So after we have all the flight here, let's see the difference here between de-ice and anti-ice. I know many people have a problem with this. And many people disagree because we use both procedures and both equipment. Let's start with the de-ice here. So let's say that de-ice involves removing or melting ice that has already formed in the aircraft. So ice that has already formed on an aircraft, not in, right? On an aircraft. There are various methods of de-icing, and these are typically used on the ground or in flight when ice accumulation occurs. So how are we going to remove the ice that is formed in the aircraft, right? Basically by putting some fluids. I'm not going to put here, I think we have 4 types of fluid, depending on the temperature and what we want. One of it melts the ice, one of it makes the surface not get any humidity, the other one just heats the surface. I'm not a specialist on that, so normally we just pay and they will do it. We not just pay and the airport authorities will do that. What else? We also preheat the surfaces, and we have the inflatable boots, right? Which is basically the leading edge of the wing expands and breaks out the ice, and then we have the exhaust gases passing through not to let it happen, right? And we also have the anti-ice procedure. So the de-ice is when we notice ice formation and we need to remove it. This can happen in the ground, all right? On the ground, sorry. It can happen in the airport before the flight, which is when we clean up the surfaces, right? We have some fluids. I can share some videos with you if you want. I've recorded last time I saw it happening. You put like the orange fluid and then the green fluid, and then it just cleans up all the surfaces. I'm sure. Let me ask you, have you ever seen a de-icing procedure, guys, before the flight? Like happening? I know you have seen spraying, but have you seen like the 2 colors of the fluids? One is yellow. There's the last one, I think, is the green one, or the white one. Just cleans up everything. The aircraft is all green. It's very interesting. Try to look for some videos about it. I'm gonna put it up in the platform as well. So this is something we use to eliminate the ice that was formed. Now we have something that make it not form again. Or even if we don't have ice, we need to have something so ice doesn't form. As I said, we are gonna be running towards the wind, well, right, with headwinds, and it's gonna be humid. So we need something in the aircraft not to let all those little water droplets attach to us and just affect our aerodynamic surfaces. So normally before the flight, we anti-ice the airplane, which is the process of preventing ice from forming on an aircraft surface. This is proactive. It means it's before it happens to ice protection, and is critical for flight safe. So a stupid example here. I'm gonna draw. I know you guys like my drawing. We have a wing here, right? We have the wing here. Ice is forming. We start having ice here. We put the inflatable boots, which is a de-ice. It breaks out all the ice. So we had an ice, a very thin layer of ice. We break the ice. After that, and this is the de-ice, so we are eliminating the ice that was formed. Now we turn on the anti-ice system, which has cold, hot air, warm air running through the leading edge. Now the ice is not gonna form because it's warm. That's a de-ice and anti-ice, okay? Got it? Easy?
Easy.
Nice. So let's go. Important. This is just something I wanted to put out there. I couldn't have this class without this, so I'm just gonna read this sentence. Okay, so first, The choice of de-icing or anti-icing method depends on the type of aircraft, the severity of the weather, and the operational requirements. As I said, we are not touching this class. I don't know the airplane you fly, and I'm not going to talk about it, all right? After that, de-icing and anti-icing fluids are subject to regulations, and they must be properly applied according to the manufacturer guidelines. Today we also have environmental problems there. Glycol is one of the things, and it's very bad for the environment. However, I know there are some studies, but we haven't found a good product that is as good as the ones we use, and they're good for the environment. So some countries, some procedures, they don't really like it, so we need to understand everything that involves the operation. And after that, pilots and ground crew must be trained in the correct application of de-icing and anti-icing methods to ensure they are effective. It's not only spraying something with a hose. You need to know the surfaces, check if everything's okay, and make sure, because if you are de-icing or anti-icing on airplanes because you know a problem can happen, there's no reason to do that poorly, right? After that, we need to be aware that de-icing fluids have limited protection durations, which is the holdover time. We're going to talk about this in 1 second. And reapplication may be necessary if conditions deteriorate. What is that? So after I apply the fluids, they're not going to be there forever, right? So we're going to talk about it. After that, proper anti-icing procedures are critical to prevent ice formation from forming on the aircraft during takeoff and in flight, as ice accumulation can affect aerodynamics and flight controls, of course. If we have ice, first of all, we are going to lose the wings profile and aerodynamic capacities, and we are also going to have performance deteriorate. Our performance is going to deteriorate because we are going to be heavier. It's going to reduce our lift, increase our drag, affect everything in the aircraft. The aircraft was not built to fly with ice in its surface. Okay, this is something I wanted to make sure I had this. We need to follow the operational requirements. We need to respect the local authorities. We need to use the proper fuel, and we must be trained to do this. It's not oh, get this fluid and put on the wing. It's not going to happen. All right? Okay. And this is a sentence my flight instructor used to tell me this every time. I added this part, right? But one thing he told me, I think I told some of you today, if in doubt, there's no doubt, which is obvious, right? If you're in doubt that you can fly safely, there's no doubt you're going to cancel the flight. If you are in doubt that the weather will be fine when you return, there's no doubt you're not going. If you're in doubt if you're going to have ice accumulation or not, there's no doubt you're going to de-ice the aircraft. Okay, so this is something very powerful. And if we live by these words, things are going to be good for us as pilots, you know. So if you are in doubt, there is no doubt. You're not going to risk something, you know. Of course, we know how aviation really works. We're not going to be 100% certain of everything. But if we think something bad might happen, better not to do it, right? So this is something very powerful. So if in doubt, there's no doubt. De-ice, cancel the flight, cancel the takeoff, go another day. It's not that important, all right? Then let's go for the main topic here. This is something that we need to understand, which is the holdover time, right? So it's holdover. It's the time our fluids can hold over, which means that once we de-ice an aircraft or we anti-ice an aircraft, that fluid has an expiration time. I might be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, it's like 60, 90, and 120 minutes. Like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, and 2 hours, something like that. So after they apply the fluids, they clean up the aircraft, they put everything there, they perform the anti-icing procedure. You need to be at flight level 300 or something like that in 1 hour, in 2 hours maybe, I don't know. Because the fluid's gonna wear off, the liquid's gonna wear off. So basically we have holdover time, often abbreviated as HOT, and it refers to the maximum period of time that an aircraft can remain on the ground after being treated with de-icing or anti-icing fluids before those fluids lose their effectiveness and risk of ice accumulation increases. All right, so I don't know if you have experienced this. I have never. That when an aircraft performs the anti-icing procedure, they are there, ready for takeoff. It takes a while for them to take off. They have to delay the flight because they need to apply the fluids again. Again, I don't want to make a mistake here, but it's a very, I'm not going to say the price. I know the price, but I don't want to be wrong here. I know it's very expensive. It's something like over $30,000 to de-ice or anti-ice an aircraft, like a big aircraft, right? It's very expensive, so after do it, you need to get out of the ground, you know. So sometimes it's not possible. So it happens a lot in the end of the year. So you're at JFK, you anti-ice your aircraft, everything's ready, but then you have 2 hours before takeoff because an aircraft had a problem. You lost that already. You have to redo the procedure because of the holdover time. If I'm not mistaken, it starts with 60 minutes and goes until 120 or 130 minutes, you know. So the thing that really matters for us here is that it has an expiration. After you do it, you need to have everything set and just get out of the ground so your aircraft can have its systems operating. All right? Then, now guys, just a little break. I know it's been intense. Any questions? Easy work? Easy work, can you hear me? Everything's okay?
Easy, teacher.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Let's go for the snow time. No, not snow times. Let's go for the constraints. Yep.
Right. In the bigger airports in USA, there is a tax rate, a specific tax rate to apply the fluids.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, there's a specific area. There's a specific area. I think is the de-icing bay or anti-icing bay, something like that we call. Some of them they do it at the gate. They do it at their parking position. But yeah, there's a specific area where you go there, the trucks are there, and they just de-ice the aircraft, you know. Normally the anti-ice is performed on the gate, yeah. But I wouldn't say in the USA. I would say everywhere. In Europe they have it, in Canada they have it. So wherever it snows and the temperature gets extreme in the winter especially, they have these areas, you know, because, well, we're flying everywhere,
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about this, guys. I want some examples here. What are the possible consequences of ice formation, also known as ice buildup, also known as ice accretion? Same thing, okay, guys? We can consider this the same thing. You can have ice buildup, ice accretion, we can have flight delays. What else? Imagine in the aircraft, what can this cause?
Jammed controls.
Perfect. Jammed controls. What else?
Lack of performance.
Perfect. Lack of
Increased fuel consumption.
perfect. What else? An increase. Increased fuel consumption. What else? One more. Everything is attached. Increased fuel consumption. What else?
Increased stall speed too.
Yes, it can increase. Beautiful one. It can increase our stall speed. Right? Why is that? We have the wing, we have the aircraft here. We have the aircraft here. We are gonna have ice on the wings. It's going to increase our weight. It's going to decrease our lift. It's going to increase our drag. It will increase the fuel consumption. It will reduce our endurance. It can, if it gets to the flight surfaces, we can have jammed flight controls. It's going to reduce our performance as well, which of course can lead to loss of controls and a crash. And of course, if we are not in our best aerodynamic profile, our stall speed is going to increase. It's all a sequence of logic, right? We put more weight, we change the profile of the wings, we are going to have a reduction in our lift, which will increase our drag, which will affect the fuel consumption, which will decrease our performance and of course engine power as well. That's it. Pretty obvious, right? When we think about the problem, we know the consequence because it's physics, right? Things need to make sense. One thing will lead to another. We can have flight delays, flight cancellations, operation disruption as well. This is something more bureaucratic. All right? Easy. Snow temps. I'm not going to talk about snow temps in a way that I'm not going to teach you how to read a snow temp. I wanted to, I was going to, but then it was just too much. We have all the little numbers, all the runways, everything. We have slush, we have compacted ice, we have fluffy snow, compacted snow, fluffy snow, water, contamination. So if you want to learn how to read, there are a lot of videos on YouTube where people more qualified than I am are teaching about snow temps. So if you want to learn how to read it, very interesting things because it's a different weather report that we don't know about. Okay. So basically, snow temp, it already works. So we already know what it means, right? Snow notice to airmen. And it's a standardized aviation weather report specifically designed to convey information about snow and other winter weather operations at an airport. So if you're planning a flight and you know you're going to have bad weather, especially during winter, you need to go for the snow temps. You need to check the snow temps as well. That's all I want you to know here. All right. So, what would you do? I would check the snow temps. It's a beautiful answer for an interview, even for the ICAO, depending on the question they ask. Right? That's it, guys. Let's just talk about the vocabulary here. Before talking about the vocabulary, I'm going to shut off the recordings and then I'm going to come back with you live, all right? So if you're watching this class here on Spotify, if you're watching the audio format of the class, thank you a lot. I cannot proceed here on Spotify because you guys can see, and I'm going to show them some pictures and we're going to talk about some of the vocabulary. If you want to watch the full version with the video and everything, thank you. You can just go to the platform, tutorialicao.com, go into the lounge. You're going to find not only the video, but also the support material there. It's all going to be available for you. All right. Thank you. Let's proceed. Guys, here, I put the picture here. And by the way, the editor cut off the last part, put on Spotify. This part you can, we're going to put in the video. All right. Let's continue. Guys, we have some things here, all right? Some people see it and they think, okay, snow, it's wet. But there are some little things here that if you know the vocabulary, it's going to help you a lot, okay? I'm not going to put the actual picture they have in the test because it's not so clear, but in this one we can see it as well, all right? So here, we know, it's easy to spot. We have snow, we have snow. Of course, right? No, everybody knows snow. Here, we can say we have maybe ice or water. I'm going to put ice just for the vocabulary. We have ice, and you know the difference between ice and snow, of course. Let's say that here, where aircraft are landing, we have compacted snow. All right, let me ask you something, guys. If you're watching this class here, if you can, please take a picture and post on Instagram. It helps a lot when I repost you guys because people see you're studying, and even when they stop, they, oh God, I need to study, and it motivates. Like every time someone posts like they are studying, I receive a message, oh man, I'm gonna go back to the course. I'm sorry, it's been a week and I forgot, and like it motivates people. So it always helps, right? If you can, of course. So we have snow. We have compacted snow, we have ice. And what about this mass? What do we call this mass right here, guys? Any clue?
Slush?
Slush, how do you spell it?
S-L-U-S-H?
Yes. That little mixture, that little mass between ice and snow and water and mud, that's a slush. We're going to call that slush. Okay, and also, of course, we have mud when it's wet, right? So this is something I want you guys to know because this is the kind of word that when we don't know what it means, it's impossible to guess. We can't guess like, oh, slush, I'm going to imagine it's ice with water and snow. No. So normally people say a lot about winter, right? Oh, winters are beautiful, snow are beautiful, and I agree with that. Snow is very beautiful, it's awesome to watch, but in the day-to-day it's all slush, you know, like you have slush in the sidewalk because snow falls. They throw some salt, right, in the runways and everything, and in the street as well, and the ice melts the snow, and you have a little bit of ice and a little bit of water and a little bit of salt and a little bit of snow, and they just put it on the sides of the runways, or even the if you have been to an airport that has a lot of snow, you'll be able to see it, right? So guys, that's it for today. Okay, so stay here. I'm gonna say bye to the other recording. If you're watching the video, thank you a lot. I'm gonna stop the recording right now and stay here with the guys live, right?